Hello everyone, this is Dr. Carolyn Maria, working as an assistant professor in Loyola College of Education, Chennai. The title of the course is Teaching and Learning, in which we are going to learn Unit 4 Models of Teaching. This video lecture is going to present to you people the different models of teaching, its meaning, definition, and function, philosophical teaching models, psychological teaching models, and modern teaching models. Let's see what is model of teaching. Models of teaching refers to different teaching models that help the teacher to sharpen their teaching skills. It allows the teacher to facilitate the overall learning curve of the student. Because the learning curve initially it will be hesitant and slowly it will progress and it will have its own stagnation. Then once again with the motivation of internal and external factors, the learning curve will go reach the top. It helps the teacher to develop the effective course curriculum for the long term as well as even the short term courses. It helps the faculty to develop the instructional material useful in the classroom for effective teaching. It helps in upgrading the standard of learning in school. It offers guidance to the teachers and planners and expedite the process of educating the students. Models of teaching enables the teachers to evaluate and analyze the strength and weakness and work on them. It creates an effective learning environment along with the improvement of instructional experience of the teachers competitively as well as even adequately. It helps the teachers to improve the quality of instruction. It remains as a useful tool in changing and upgrading the instructional technology. It helps to suffice all the requirement of the modern day student and helping them to connect with every other student more effectively. What are the definitions of models of teaching? According to Bruce Joyce and Marsha Well, they describe model of teaching as a plan or a pattern that can be used to shape the curricula, to design instructional material, and to guide instruction in the classroom and other settings. Jangira and Azit Singh, they said, model of teaching is a set of interrelated components arranged in a sequential manner which provides the guidelines to realize the specific goal. It helps in designing instructional activities and environmental facilities, carrying out these activities and realization of stipulated objectives. Nelson said, teaching model is a pattern or a plan which can be used to shape the curriculum or course, to select the instructional material, and to guide the teacher's action. According to Mons, models are prescriptive teaching strategies designed to accomplish a particular instructional goal. Robert S. Woodworth says, to confirm a behavior, action, and to direct one's action according to some particular design or idea is the model of teaching. Philbert Heyer said, it is a set of interrelated components arranged in a sequence which provide guidance to realize the specific goal. According to Scaffer, model of teaching are well structured, logically consistent, cohesive, and lucidly described alternative pattern of teaching. What are the characteristics of models of teaching? It helps the teacher to encourage the art of teaching, development of inherent abilities in the students. Based on the individual differences of the students, the teacher can modify the teaching model, and it is influenced by philosophy. It answers the fundamental questions in world in relation to philosophy. What is the mere purpose of teaching? What is the purpose of learning? All these are answered by the teaching model, and it provides appropriate experience for the teacher as well as the student, and it maximizes the teaching, and it helps the teacher to practice well the teaching and give a proper concentration for teaching procedure. What are the fundamental elements of teaching model? Normally, majority of teaching models are based on the following 6 elements. They are focus. Before teaching, we need to formulate the objectives of teaching. So, the objective of teaching a particular topic in a classroom and determines the student behavior before teaching. After formulating the objective, we need to go for the phases of teaching or the stages of teaching, which we need to plan how we are going to start the class, what are the sequential activities which are planned during the class, how the explanation should be done, and at the end, how are we going to evaluate. That is called as the syntax. Then the principles of reaction. Reaction of the teacher whenever the teacher come across with any student's response. If the students are asking some question in the class, how well the teacher is going to respond to the students. And social system. Here the teacher understands the role of a teacher, the role of the students, and the relationship between the teacher and the student. And the support system is the materials provided like journal, textbook, article, newspaper, blog, audiovisual aids, and blackboard. All these are the other learning objectives. And application, the effectiveness of teaching is analyzed or assessed by using the assessment technology. So the utility of the learnt material in other situation, how well they are understood the concept and how well they are using it in other situation is the application part of the teaching. Let's now focus on the types and the models of teaching. There are three models: philosophical teaching model, psychological teaching model, and modern teaching models. In philosophical teaching model, we need to learn about insight model proposed by Plato, impression model by John Locke, and rule model by Kant. In psychological model, basic teaching model by Robert Glasser, interaction model by Flander, computer based model by Daniel Davis. And in modern teaching models, we'll be learning about information processing model, personal model, social interaction model, and behavior modification model. Let's see one after the other. Let's now focus on the philosophical teaching model, in which Plato said that students should learn by doing. When he or she reaches the higher level of education, his reason would be trained in the process of thinking and abstracting. Plato stressed on motivation and interest in learning. Knowledge which is acquired under compulsion obtains no hold in the mind. He was dead against of the use of force in education. Education should enable the student to learn on their own, rather forcefully allowing them to be in the classroom and giving them a lot of inputs. Do not train the youth by force or harshness, but direct them to do it by themselves, which whatever is amusing in the mind of them, and that may make a person to become a very good scientist as well as inventor by discovering the accuracy and peculiarism in all the methods and methodologies which are available. Plato recommended a place where children can love to go. Whenever we come across with the school bell morning, you could see all the students putting their head down and walking into the classroom. When the school bells goes off in the evening, you could see children just rushing out. They'll run out from the classroom situation because the students are having some sort of stress in the classroom or school. Plato recommended a place where the children can love to go and stay there and play with the things which amuse them, and by their playway method they can learn on their own. Next is John Locke. He has introduced a model called as impression model. He said that it is based on the general assumption of child's brain like a clean slate at the time of birth. People are having this as a myth that children are born with the brain as a clean slate, and whatever experiences are provided through teaching which will create a sort of impression in the children's brain, and these impressions are even otherwise called as learning. And in this learning process the sense organs are playing a vital role. And John Locke believed that the purpose of education was to produce an individual with a sound mind and the sound body so as to better the service of the country. An example of this John Locke's impression model, our sense organs are sensitized when we touch. When we touch the eyes, our sense organs are sensitized, that is, our skin is sensitized, and we feel that as cold, that is the sensation we get. And it creates an impression in the mind that ice is cold. You touch the ice, you feel it is cold, and it is giving an impression in your mind that ice is cold, and we reflect that ice is cold, and at last we come to know that if you touch ice it will be chilly. So this is the information which creates a sort of impression in the mind of a person. Kant proposed the rules model with regard to teaching model. Kant gives importance to logic because it is followed in certain rules and regulation. Teaching should be done by following certain rules and regulation. The objective rule model is to develop the logical reasoning capacities of the student. Some particular rules are to be followed. For example, before teaching, we need to plan, then organize all the teaching learning methodology, then start with an interaction of teaching, then performing the students' learning. And after teaching, we need to follow an assessment technology. The second models are psychological teaching models. First, let's learn the basic teaching model proposed by Robert Glasser. Robert Glasser has developed a stripped down teaching model which, with modifications, it is even otherwise called as basic teaching model. And this basic teaching model explains the relationship between the teaching and learning, and it provides simple, adequate conceptualization of the teaching process. The basic teaching model divides the teaching process into four components or the parts as instructional objective, entering behavior, instructional procedure, and performance assessment. This goes one after the other. So, before teaching, the teacher has to be clear about the objective, then seek what are the entry behavior of the students with regard to the mental readiness of the students. Then they can start the procedure of teaching, and at the end the teacher is expected to go for an analysis or assessment of the effectiveness of teaching and understanding level of the students. Flander, he has proposed a model called interaction model of teaching. He considered teaching process as an interaction process. In this model of behavior, the student and teacher are analyzed. The behavior of the student as well as the behavior of the teacher is analyzed because the interaction between these two people and the content material is only used in this teaching model. An interaction between the teacher and the student is more emphasized in this model, and Flander's interaction analysis is an observational tool which is used to classify the verbal behavior of teacher as well as the students and the interaction in the classroom. Flander's instrument was designed for observing only the verbal communication in the classroom, and no non-verbal communication or gestures are taken into account. He divided the classroom behavior into 10 categories, and that is called as Flander's 10 category system, in which the two categories are related to the students and seven categories are pertaining to the teacher, and one is silence. Teacher talk 7, student talk 2, and silence 1. Let's see how well the teacher talks. Teacher talks in 7 situations in the class by accepting the feeling of the students, praising and encouraging, accepting or uses the ideas of the students, ask question, lecturing, giving direction, criticizing or justifying the authority. Students are expected to talk only 2 times in the class by responding to the teacher whenever they are questioned or whenever their peer groups are questioned, and the students can initiate talking. Whenever they need any clarification, they can raise their voice. And silence is the one where the students may either understand the content whatever is taught clearly, or the student may have some sort of confusion. Let's now focus on the computer-based teaching model proposed by Daniel Davis. It is the most complicated model, having the entering behavior, determination of objectives, and teaching aspect as fundamental elements. In this element, computer teaching plan is selected according to the entry behavior and instructional objectives. We can call this as a program learning, where you are studying now online courses, right? The learning material is provided to the students. The students learn the material, then immediately, simultaneously, their learning and understanding is evaluated. So the performance of the students are evaluated. Accordingly, alternative teaching plan is presented. In this model, the diagnosis as well as teaching go side by side. Remedial teaching is also provided on the basis of diagnosis. Whoever is in need of clarity in any content, for them, the remedial teaching is provided. Individual differences are also given much importance with regard to this. What are the benefits of computer assisted instruction? Computer assisted instruction material makes the teaching learning very attractive, inspirational, and effective. It provides teaching according to the individual differences of the students. It contributes to the economy of time, energy, resources of teachers and students. It brings clarity and vividness to the subject matter or content. Proper use of computer assisted instruction material help a person to motivate the students. It helps in developing and sustaining the interest of the students, because one after the other, when you are given the correct answer, it is motivating you to go for further learning. When you are giving a wrong answer, it is directing you to go for further learning. It makes the subject matter very easy to comprehend and interesting and lively. It provides ample opportunities for the student participation in the class. Now let's focus on the modern teaching models. Information processing model, which is concerned with the intellectual development of the individual and help to develop the method of processing the information from the environment. These models focus on the intellectual capacity. They are concerned with the ability of the learner to observe, organize the data, understand information, form concept, employ verbal and non-verbal symbols. And the very primary purpose of the information processing model are mastery of methods of inquiry, mastery of academic concepts and facts, the development of general intellectual skills such as ability to think, reason out, think more logically, all these are helpful for the students. Let me give a brief review of information processing models. Concept attainment model and inductive model proposed by Brunner and Kildataba to develop the inductive reasoning, mental inductive process, and understanding of concepts and principles. Inquiry teaching model proposed by Richard Suckman to develop the individual competencies to achieve the social objective. Biological science inquiry model proposed by Joseph to develop the understanding of research methodology to think logically on social problems. Advanced organizational model proposed by David Osbel to understand the concepts and facts to make the content purposeful and interesting. Cognitive growth development model proposed by Jean Piaget to develop the general intelligence and logic and social and moral development. Let's learn about the personal model. Personal development model assists the individual for development of the selfhood. They focus on the emotional life of an individual. The primary goals are to increase the student's self-worth, to help the students understand themselves more fully, to help students to recognize their emotions and become more aware of the way of emotions that affect the other aspects of their behavior, to help them to develop the goals of learning, to help students to develop the plans of increasing their competence, and to increase the students' creativity and playfulness, and to increase the students' openness to new experience. Let me give a brief review of the personal models. Non-directive teaching model was proposed by Carl Rogers to develop the self-learning by auto-instructions, self-research, and self-understanding. Synthetic model teaching model was proposed by William Gordon to develop the creative competencies for problem solving. Awareness training model proposed by W.S. Fitz to develop individual competencies and mutual relations. Classroom meeting model proposed by William Glaser to develop the skill of self-understanding and capacities of dutifulness. Conceptual system model proposed by David Hunt to adjust with the environment with flexibility in the personality. Let's proceed to social interaction model. The models emphasize the relationship of the individual to the society as well as to the other person. The primary goals are to help the students to work together to identify and solve the problems, to develop the skills to human relations, and to become aware of the personal and social values. Group investigation model proposed by John Dewey and Herbert to develop the democratic abilities and use of knowledge and skills in the life of individual and society. Jurisprudential model developed by Donald Oliver and James Shaver to solve the problem on the basis of information and reasoning power. Social inquiry model, social simulation model, role playing model proposed by Benjamin Cox and Byron to develop the competencies of problem solving and adjustment. Laboratory method model by Bethel and Main to develop the group skills of individual capacities and adjustment. Behavior modification model. All the models share the common theoretical base, a body of knowledge which refer to the behavior theory. The common thrust of these models emphasize on changing the visible behavior of the learner. The famous psychologist B.Ed Skinner proposed the operant conditioning model by which to achieve the objectives of the lower level of cognitive domain on the basis of individual differences. Some take-home points are models of teaching which can be used by teachers in teaching learning process for realizing the different instructional objectives. A number of instructional strategies to realize the different instructional goals have been developed recently. They have transformed the existing knowledge in the teaching learning process. Need to incorporate a few models of teaching in the curriculum of teacher education program at the secondary level as well as elementary level to enable the prospective teachers to attain the higher degree of ability to teach. Just reflect on this. You could see two wheels, student wheel and teacher wheel. And you could see the teacher planning, defining and reviewing and doing. Same way the student is also planning, defining, reviewing and doing. And teacher and student are expected to co-managing each other. And teachers play a major role with regard to learning the gear tool, problem solving, questioning, evaluation and driving as well as even the time management. And students are giving more importance for doing. You could see the percentage of the students doing more. Now you could reflect on the various high responsibility of the teacher being in the teacher's seat to co-manage the students to do a lot in order to learn whatever we teach. So whatever the models of teaching we are using with regard to teaching should enable the students to learn on their own and stand on their own legs, becoming a meritorious students. You could refer this website for further information. Thank you for listening. Wish you all good luck.